Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Everyday EDC. It feels good to be back in 2021, doesn't it? Secret, this might be recorded previous to that. So, what are we doing today? Today, we are going to be giving you guys a review. Kind of a unique review. I never would have had a chance to review this if Sam didn't send this in with his beastly freaking Praetorian. But, yeah, so we're going to be reviewing the Kizer Megatherium. I'll grab my notes, put them off to the side here so we can not miss this. So this thing is extremely unique. Obviously an Elijah Isham design, first and foremost. You can just tell every single one of his handles looks exactly like this. And it's a pretty unique and cool design. Actually pretty just almost badass looking, right? Like it's futuristically badass butcher blade. That's considered a wharncliffe. The action on it's okay. I'm not going to say good because it does have blade play, and before I went to go fix it, I noticed that these pivots are actually free spinning, which irritates the crap out of me, and I'm not going to touch it then because it's got Loctite and everything else, so I'm not touching it. But as it sits, it is almost perfectly centered. The blade play is relatively minimal. You can just feel that clicking. There's no up and down. This is a frame lock with an over travel stop. It does have only right hand only tip up carry. So for those of us right here, we got this cool milled pocket clip. Comes down, it actually fits the design perfectly. And that's what my favorite part of this knife is the stonewash aesthetic looking finish. This thing just looks good. You get this titanium frame lock, these cool milled out pivots, which they spent more time milling them than they did making them captive, which take that for what you will. These are T10 for the pivots, and these are T8 for the body screws, and the pocket clip screws are going to be T6. So this does have a flipper tab, and you can also spidey flick it, but the spidey flick's a little difficult. I've had to learn and teach myself how to do it, and the frustration with that is it's not that you can't access the hole. I never thought that this was going to be an issue. I don't have something readily available that I can show you that's difficult to access the flipper hole, but in this one in particular, it's not that you can't access it, it's that there's so much access to it and the hole's so wide, flipping it up at the top portion, now that I've got it down, it feels okay, but it's hard. You have to find the right spot. I find that right here, I can really get a little bit of flick, but you can hear that I can't really flick it out too hard without getting a little bit of wrist. You know, it's kind of difficult. The flipper tab, on the other hand, nicely shaped. There's no jimping on it. It's just a perfect almost light switch. But you can't really light switch it because the action's not the greatest. Then again, this is a DLC coated knife, so it probably needs to break in, and I know for a fact that this is relatively brand new. So at least brand new to Sammy and brand new to me, and I'm not going to kind of mess with that. So I got a little problem with the action. It's okay. My favorite part about the action is the sound. It sounds almost like the vibration, like the ting. Listen. Every time I say listen, it doesn't do it. It just tings, and that it's a nice sound. So it carries pretty well in the pocket actually, and that's due to the way that this pocket clip kind of follows with the contour of the body. I just put it in my pocket just to double check myself because it's such a large knife that your hand just goes right past the pocket clip. You don't even notice it. So Isham really nails that. And what he does with that is watch where the pocket clip goes. Where is it? It's tucked back here. So in this half finger choil right here, it's tucked in perfectly and it hides the pocket clip when it's in the open position. That is probably, aside from the aesthetics, my favorite part about the Isham designs in himself, because most Isham designs do that. But it's also probably my favorite part about this knife. Now, I thought I was going to love this blade shape, and honestly I do. But when you're choked up, it's hard to explain, but you see the gap in between my hand right here, it almost doesn't fill in. So when you have it like this, it feels okay, you're locked in, but I also feel like I'm pinched up right against there. It doesn't feel like I can find the exact right spot to like it. It just, It's kind of like, it's a bad comparison because this is by nowhere near how bad or cheap the DEFCON TP68 was, but they tried to do a lot of things with the TP68 and they were able to. So you were able to choke up and everything felt okay, kind of comfortable. But I'm telling you right now, I don't think this is a knife that I want to use for a long period of time due to this Isham design gap. And I find myself kind of erring on that side with every Isham design that I've felt except for the McKenna. The Plethoros in particular, I mean, this is a spitting image of the Plethoros, just the blade shape, right? And titanium, etc. But I got the same feeling. I loved the blade shape, but then I get it in hand and I just can't find the right spot. And I'm sure there's other people. I mean, clearly he's a big name designer, so I shouldn't like come off as I'm hating on Elijah Isham designs himself, because clearly people want his designs for the unique look and just the overall, I mean, the way that pocket clip disappears is pretty freaking cool. And the way that the pocket clip is angled, so when it's in your pocket you don't feel it, that's also pretty freaking cool. But ergonomically, I'm not a big fan. Next, this knife actually did bite me. I wasn't a fan. Well, let me rewind. When I first got it in hand, aesthetically, I was like, this is badass. But when I'm talking about in hand and ergonomics and actually appreciating a knife for what it is, to me, this is more of a piece of art than a tool. Now, this blade is so freaking long, and when we get into the specs, you'll see that this blade is so long that it actually is deceiving, because it's straight and then the point just keeps coming. So when I was actually cutting out my tortoise food, and I have the head of lettuce right here, and I'm just chopping through, and it's my excuse to use a knife in the morning. And I guess I'm used to a different style knife, but I want to say I had my fingers tucked like this and my pointer like that, and I cut through the head of lettuce, and the tip, see, can you still see it? Yeah, it's a little bit, it's just like a dead skin and stuff there. But the tip just came out and just like wide open. I'll tell you what, if you want a slicer, this freaking thing slices really good, because it went right through the meat of my pointer finger pretty well. That being said, let's get into some specs. So, overall length on this guy is coming in at just about 8.5 inches, almost 8.5. Oh no, hold on, almost 8 3/4. It's in between 8.5 and 8 3/4 long. The blade length itself is coming in at, due to the way Isham does his designs, the blade length, if you're going to the tip of the scale, is about 3 3/4, but if you're going the whole way, it's almost 4 inches. Almost. The actual cutting edge is 3 3/4 too, so that's pretty cool. You're getting a ton of cutting edge to blade length. This isn't a small guy, so the weight on this guy is going to be a little bit obnoxious. Not obnoxious, I mean, it's kind of what you expect out of this, right? So the weight on this guy, coming in at 6.28 ounces. It's going to be heavier than a lot, but I'll tell you what, if you really, see, I fail it all the time. There's something about having to overextend to do it. If you're one of those guys that's worried about how it's going to carry, but you don't mind the weight, I can tell you this. It carries very, very, very well. All right, let's get into some. The blade stock thickness of this guy, coming in at a whopping 1.5, 1.55, but it has this long body to come down to a relatively narrow edge. So I haven't checked the edge on this guy, but let's check him. Right about 20 thousandths behind the edge, plus or minus. So that's pretty, off the screen, that's pretty darn good for a blade this size. So that tells you about the sliceability of this guy. It's just stupid slicey. Let's go over the overall thickness, 0.55, which is pretty good, because the reason that you get in a little bit more is these handles are relatively contoured. It's not a full round contouring, but you have this chamfering all the way up here, which is less chamfering. When you get to that point, it's more of contouring. And then it comes up to this flat, which still doesn't feel completely flat. Same thing on this side. So it does fill out your hand well, which is the irritating part. All signs indicate to me that this ergonomically should be a beast. And it's just, I just haven't found it with the Isham designs. I'm sure there's people out there that are like, no, they're awesome. For me, I just haven't found the ergonomics on any Isham design to be, above average. We'll say that. Trying not to hate on it because I do like the knife. So the overall height, this is a tall boy coming in at 1.9 inches. To put that into perspective, guys, the PM2 is coming in at a 1.6, the PM3 is coming in at a 1.66, and the Manix 2 is even coming in at a 1.74. So let's get you guys some size comparisons here. Here it is up against the Rat Model 1 and the Rat Model 2. As you can see, the Rat Model 2 is totally dwarfed by this, and actually the Rat Model 1 is slightly smaller as well. As usual, I do a ton of size comparisons for you guys, so hopefully you have seen at least one of the knives on the table to really say, oh, okay, so that's how big it is. And my repertoire of size comparison knives have changed. This isn't permanent, but I have some things coming and going. So here is the mini feldspar. As you can see, it totally dwarfs the mini feldspar, and it actually dwarfs the Super Freak. I mean, it looks like it's about 1/4 of an inch longer. I should start doing this in chopped footages where you guys see like each one and I chop it up, and then you see the next one without having to go through like the side portions of it. So here it is up against the Smock and the Civivi Brigand. Obviously much longer than both and much taller than both. And then last but not least, let's get into some of the Spydercos. Same price range, brethren. This is the Spyderco Shaman and the Spyderco PM3. So you're kind of looking at this and you're saying, okay, it's even larger than the Shaman. Those of us that have experienced the Shaman are going, that's a pretty freaking large knife then if it's bigger than the Shaman. I mean, the Shaman's almost at the peak of pretty hefty, not hefty, but it's a larger knife. And the PM3 is obviously way smaller. So let's check the profile here. As you can see, as you can't see, shit. That's how much bigger than it is. I got it butted up against my hand right now. That thing's massive. This is a massive freaking knife. He was serial crossed by a really big freaking guy. He was serial crossed by a really big freaking guy. Here it is up against the Shaman. The Shaman's got a pretty decent carry profile, just because it's long, it's lean. So this is an S35 blade, which is nice. I love the fact that it's S35. The fact that it's coated doesn't mean shit because it's S35. You don't need to coat S35. It's relatively corrosion resistant, pretty damn corrosion resistant actually. It's going to be a little bit tougher than S30, less edge retention than S30 as well, but S35 right now is probably my favorite attainable on a regular basis type of steel. So S35 is good. Titanium scales, also very good. The billboarding, you have a little bit. Kizer's logo looks pretty sweet. You have some serial number and then S35VN right there. And then you have the name of the knife plus Isham Designs right there. I had it upside down. Let's see here. There you go. There's the Isham Design logo. But overall aesthetics, I mean, this thing's mean. It's futuristic. It's cool looking. The aesthetics are just awesome. The pivot, and the milling on the pivot's just pretty sweet. I mean, the contouring's nice. Even the pocket clip kind of fits. You almost don't see it. It blends in so well. So fit and finish, I mean, it's kind of just put together. It's 2 pieces of titanium. You know, you got your frame lock with an over travel stop right here. And, you know, T8 screws, black back spacers. And yeah. So, you know, the overall fit and finish looks very good. I mean, the knife just looks phenomenal. Aesthetics, I got to give it an A to an A+ if this is your type, right? Ergonomics, like I said, I'm not a huge fan. They're average to me. I have to give these a B+ or a B on ergonomics. It's trying, but it's not quite there for me. Blade shape and you know, blade steel, you're gonna get an A because I love S35. This is a very practical use. Practical's the wrong word. A very functional blade. and blade shape. I mean, you're going to get a lot of work done with this if you can find that ergonomic spot that just fits. I mean, this knife is ready to slice. It's ready to go. Value. So you're getting titanium S35. You're getting a lot of material, a lot of design elements, which you can tell the contouring of the titanium, the pivot screws, even the way that the pocket clip goes in, to the way that this is designed. Isham puts a lot into his designs. At like $210 plus or minus dollars, it's a sweet, sweet value if Isham designs are up your alley. And that's a big if, because for me, they're not. And like I said, one thing that kind of irritates me about this is the fact that this pivot screw is free spinning. It's kind of like, why? Why do we have a free spinning pivot on a $210 knife? You know, you spent all this time on the design and you left this thing free spinning. You know, I don't think that you needed to do such a large flipper hole. Honestly, I feel like if you would have had it to where it doesn't cut out so much, and maybe they cut it out to try and weight relieve some, because there's no milling on the inside of these scales. Maybe they did it for some weight relief, but to me, I feel like I'm losing on some of the hole here. I'm pushing further out, so my momentum is already lost from the spot where I want to normally flick. Normally, I'm flicking like that, or I have the ability to flick up. That's what the spider hole, or the spidey hole, you can push up on this and you get a lot more force, because that's the proper place that you should be pushing. That's where the leverage is perfect and you get that breaking of the detent and it's nice. This one, I really don't have the option to push up. I have to end up pushing out, and in order to do that, I have to go further out, kind of wedge my finger and launch. Now, I've gotten the hang of it. I can open it wherever, but it's just not as satisfying. And it's a little bit more difficult, and I've failed it more times than not. And the scary thing about this thing is it's such a big blade. It is so sharp. If you're holding it like this and you kind of fail it, I'm worried that this thing's going to chop down on my finger. I mean, it's actually freaked me out a couple times. Maybe it's because it bit me once, and I'm like, oh, shit. So this is the Elijah Isham Megatherium by Kizer. Titanium, S35, sheep's foot style blade, nice pocket clip, not really deep carry, but you don't have too much hanging out there. It contours in your pocket fine. In your pocket, it's great. Frame lock with an over travel stop pivot that isn't quite captive, which sucks. The action on it's okay, but then again, I don't want to tighten it up because I just don't want to mess with that. So overall, would I recommend this knife? For $210, it's a niche. You have to know what you're getting and know what you want. And if you want this and you know what Isham designs feel like, then by all means go out and get it, because yeah, it's awesome. I mean, at face value, everything you're getting out of this is great. Functional blade, titanium, S35, it's Kizer, Kizer's great. But to me, it's just so niche. I don't know that I can recommend it because of the price. Now, like the Revo Berserk, it's very niche, right? That's a budget blade. It's so goofy. It's weird looking. Can I recommend it? Yeah, it's $45. Go for it. It's if you don't like it, it's $45. But to me, I loved it. This thing, not so much. I don't love it. I don't hate it, and I don't think it's a bad knife. I just think it's very unique and specific to what it's trying to do. My name is Tyler. This has been Everyday EDC. Thank you guys so much. Stay sharp. Stay safe. Welcome to 2021. Let's just kick it off with a bang, guys. Thanks for watching.